Welcome to the 5th episode of our podcast's 4th season, Scary But True Campfire Stories, brought to you by Dudes Camping. Our goal is to share true stories of strange, supernatural, ghostly, and unexplained as we gather around the virtual campfire. Or maybe you are sitting around a real campfire right now. Maybe you have a strange but true story you'd like to share. Email us at dudescampingstories@gmail.com with your own Bigfoot, UFO, ghost, conspiracy, or just unexplained supernatural story, and we'll consider it for broadcast. Don't forget to visit us on YouTube and Facebook at Dudes Camping. A close encounter of the third kind happens when someone not only sees a UFO, but also spots beings that appear to be its occupants. This type of encounter goes beyond just witnessing a UFO nearby, first kind, or observing its effects on the environment, second kind. The beings spotted are often called UFO-nauts, a term chosen to stay neutral and avoid assumptions about their origins. Many people who experience this kind of encounter believe they have met beings from another world, though their exact nature remains a topic of much debate. These alien beings come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, and their behaviors are just as varied. Some may act in ordinary, unremarkable ways, while others might display strange or even hostile actions. This range of behaviors and appearances adds to the mystery and ongoing intrigue surrounding these encounters. Such experience is unique, contributing to the complex puzzle of understanding who these beings are and what their presence means. The night of October 11th, 1973, forever changed the lives of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, two men who claimed to be abducted by extraterrestrial beings while fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. Their harrowing account began with an unusual whirring sound and flashing blue lights that cut through the evening's tranquility. What followed was the appearance of a silent, oval-shaped object, estimated to be 30 to 40 feet wide and 8 to 10 feet high, which descended and hovered mere feet from their fishing spot. Hickson and Parker reported being completely paralyzed as three bizarre, robotic-looking humanoids with wrinkled skin emerged from the craft. They described being levitated aboard the alien vessel, where they underwent a disquieting examination by a mechanical eye-like device. The ordeal concluded with their return to the riverbank, leaving both men deeply traumatized. Despite the extraordinary nature of their claims, subsequent investigations, including lie detector tests, indicated that Hickson and Parker were genuinely distressed and unequivocally believed in the reality of their incredible encounter. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Pascagoula Abduction. The chill October air usually brought a sense of peace, especially when you were out on the Pascagoula River fishing with a good buddy like Calvin Parker. That night in 1973, the moonlight was reflecting silver on the water, and the air was thick with the scent of the riverbank. It was supposed to be just another ordinary night, a quiet escape from the daily grind. But in hindsight, it was the night everything I thought I knew about the world got turned upside down. We sat there with only the sounds of water lapping against the hull of our small boat and the occasional rustle of leaves. We were just casting our lines, sharing a few laughs, and enjoying the tranquility. Then a light caught my eye across the river. My first thought was maybe a distant car or another fishing boat, but it was too bright and too steady. It just hung there, pulsing with an eerie glow that sent a shiver straight down my spine. "Calvin, look at that light," I remember saying, pointing. He turned, and our casual chatter died. We both just stared, a knot of curiosity and something else. A growing unease, tightening in my stomach. The light grew brighter, closer, illuminating the trees on our side of the bank in an unnatural, almost sickly green hue. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before, My heart started beating fast as the light began to morph, taking on a definite, terrifying shape. Suddenly, before either of us could fully process what we were seeing, a massive triangular craft descended from the sky. It wasn't just big, it was massive, silent, and it hovered just a few feet above the water, maybe 30 or 40 feet away from our boat. The air around us felt charged with an invisible energy that I could taste. An overwhelming sense of dread, cold and absolute, washed over me. I remember gripping the sides of my fishing boat so hard my knuckles were white, my body frozen with fear. Before we could even scream, a beam of blue light shot down from the underside of the craft, enveloping both me and Calvin. It wasn't warm or gentle. It was intense, almost solid, and it paralyzed us completely. I couldn't move a muscle, couldn't utter a sound. Through the blinding blue, I could make out the outlines of something emerging from the craft, something that was definitely not human. They were about 5 feet tall, their bodies a grotesque mixture of gray, wrinkled skin that looked almost like elephant skin, the hands that ended in what seemed to be pincher-like claws. Their heads were bulbous, and their eyes were large, dark, and slanted, utterly devoid of emotion. A surge of pure fear, unlike anything I had ever known, shot through me. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the blue light receded, and one of the creatures floated toward us. It didn't walk. It seemed to glide, its feet never touching the ground. It made a strange muttering sound, a sort of humming or buzzing, and then it gestured, not with its clawed hand, but with a stump-like protrusion where a neck should have been, towards the craft. And somehow, against my will, I found myself floating too, being drawn helplessly toward that monstrous triangle. Calvin was right beside me, equally helpless. We were taken aboard the craft, and the world shifted around us, transforming into an alien interior filled with pulsating, blinking lights and bizarre machinery, the kind that I can't even explain. Inside, they separated us. I was moved into another room, placed gently but firmly on a cold, metallic table. My fear intensified, tightening on my chest. There were 3 of them now, surrounding me. They didn't speak in words, but I could feel their presence, their intentions, a cold, clinical curiosity. They were examining us, probing us, and I felt utterly exposed, completely helpless, like a specimen under a microscope. Their touch was unsettling, their claw-like fingers cold and unyielding as they moved over my body. I could feel my heart pounding in my neck, a frantic drumbeat in this terrible silence. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but my body was unresponsive, paralyzed by the sheer terror of it all. Time became distorted and meaningless in that surreal environment. Minutes stretched into hours, then snapped back into fleeting seconds. I only remember the sensation of the metallic table beneath me, the constant invasive feeling of being stared at, prodded, and meticulously examined. They moved with a strange, almost robotic precision, their movements smooth yet unnatural. There was no pain, no malice, just an intense, dispassionate scrutiny that was perhaps more terrifying than any physical torment. I remember their large, dark eyes, unblinking, studying every inch of me. It was an invasion of my very being, a violation of my privacy, and I was powerless to stop it. Then, after what felt like hours that spanned lifetimes, the examination abruptly ended. They released me, and the next thing I knew, I was back on the riverbank, lying next to Calvin. The craft was gone, the night once again silent, but the chilling fear still lingered in every nerve ending. We were disoriented, nauseated, and utterly terrified. I looked over at Calvin. His face was pale, eyes wide with the horror that gripped me. We pulled ourselves to our feet. Our legs were shaking beneath us, still trying to grasp the enormity of what had just happened. "Did that really just happen, Charlie?" Calvin asked, his voice a cracked whisper, pleading for some kind of reassurance I couldn't give him. I think so, Cal." I managed to speak, my own voice barely a croak. My heart was still hammering, causing a shortness of breath. But what were those things? What did they want from us? The weight of the night pressed down on us, the reality of our experience settling in like a heavy, suffocating fog. We both felt an urgent, almost desperate need to tell someone, to somehow make sense of this madness. But who in their right mind would ever believe such a tale? We drove back to my place, silent most of the time. Our breathing was harsh, and occasionally we would bust out in nervous laughter that felt more like a desperate coping mechanism than genuine amusement. Once inside, we sat in the living room, the lights dimmed, and I could still see the raw fear etched on Calvin's face. "We have to report this, Cal," I insisted. "People need to know." I knew it sounded crazy, but the alternative, keeping it to ourselves, felt even crazier. The next day, we mustered up our courage and drove to the local sheriff's office. I'll never forget the skeptical looks we received when we walked in. Two ordinary men trying to explain something confusing and extraordinary. We told them everything, from the strange light that descended from the sky to the grotesque beings that had taken us aboard their craft. The officers exchanged glances, disbelief and pity on their faces. I could see the doubt radiating from them, and it made my stomach sick, knowing that we were walking into a nightmare of public ridicule. But to their credit, they eventually took our statements seriously enough to contact the local news. The moment we stepped out of that office into the lights of the television cameras, a new wave of dread washed over me. I recounted our story to reporters, feeling completely exposed, vulnerable, as if the entire world was judging my sanity. Every word felt like I was betraying my own mind, and yet I knew it was the truth. As the days bled into weeks, the story exploded into the media. The Pascagoula Abduction were the headlines across the country, and Calvin and I were thrust into a spotlight we never wanted, never imagined. Some people believed us, others, the vast majority, mocked us mercilessly. The ridicule was relentless, a constant barrage of jokes accusing us of insanity and outright scorn. I was being torn apart, piece by piece. I was just a simple man from Mississippi, a shipyard worker, not someone looking for fame or attention. I had experienced something that I couldn't explain, and now I was being paraded around like a sideshow attraction, my sanity questioned by strangers. In the midst of all this chaos, I couldn't shake the awful feeling of being watched. I'd often wake up in the dead of night, drenched in a cold sweat, my heart racing, convinced that those alien figures were lurking just around my window, or worse, just beyond the edge of my vision. The fear had seeped into my bones, a permanent chill. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, always expecting to see those large, slanted eyes, always expecting another encounter. Calvin and I tried our best to support each other through the madness, but the experience had undeniably changed us, fundamentally altering our lives. We found it nearly impossible to return to any form of normalcy. Friends who had known us for years began to distance themselves, their casual conversations replaced by awkward silence. Even some family members began to question our sanity, their distrustful looks sharper than any outright accusation. The sense of isolation was suffocating, a heavy blanket that weighed down every waking moment. Yet, despite the ridicule, the fear, and the profound loneliness, we couldn't escape the truth of what had happened on that warm October night on the Pascagoula River. It was a truth burned into our memories, indelible and terrifying. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. The Pascagoula abduction gained significant credibility due to several compelling factors. Foremost among them was the consistency of their accounts. Immediately after the alleged abduction, the two men, visibly shaken and traumatized, reported the incident to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department. Officers, initially skeptical, left Hickson and Parker alone in a room with a hidden tape recorder, hoping to catch them in a fabrication. However, the recording revealed their genuine terror and unwavering conviction in their bizarre experience, with Hickson famously telling Parker, "It scared me to death too, son. You can't get over it in a lifetime. Jesus Christ, have mercy." This raw and consistent testimony, even when they believed they were unobserved, strongly suggested that something extraordinary had indeed happened to them. Further bolstering the story's credibility were the results of the polygraph examinations, which indicated that both men were being truthful about their encounter. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a prominent UFO researcher and former skeptic, also investigated the case and found the witnesses to be credible, calling the case deeply puzzling. While skeptics have since raised questions about the polygraph's reliability and minor discrepancies in Hickson's later recollections, the initial coherence of their testimony, their apparent distress, and the findings of early investigations contributed to the widespread belief that the Pascagoula abduction was a genuinely inexplicable event. The fact that Parker, though initially reluctant, later went on to write a book and speak about his experiences, and that a historical marker was unveiled at the site of the alleged abduction, further cemented its place in UFO lore as one of the best documented and most credible alien abduction cases. Join us next time for Part 2 of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, as we examine one of the most famous and credible cases to date, Travis Walton's abduction from the Sitgreaves National Forest. Thanks for listening to Scary But True Campfire Stories, presented by Dudes Camping. Narrated by Matthew S. Newbold. Do you have a story that needs to be told? Email us at dudescampingstories@gmail.com with your scary but true story, and we'll consider it for broadcast. Please, hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this story, and leave a comment. It really does help us out. Until next time, we will see you around the campfire.